Welcome to episode 9 of the XDI Experience Live Show. Early start over here in Southern California. The sun has risen, there's clear blue skies. Today, we are hitting straight at the heart of making things happen, understanding your customer and understanding your people in order to accelerate, innovate, design, and manufacture. Yes, it's all about people performance and success through EQ plus IQ. Welcome back. Please say your prayers for those in Texas and Louisiana right now. They are going through a pretty devastating Category 4 Hurricane Laura. Tough times for them, tough times with COVID as well, of course. Anyway, we are 9 episodes in and I am loving this show. But at the end of the day, it is about you, the audience, and our ability to bring you value. Over the coming days, I will be reaching out to you personally to get your feedback, to understand what you would like to hear about and who you'd like on the show. A big thanks in advance for your feedback. In the meantime, please, if you look below, there is a comment section. Grab hold of it, make it your own, make your comments, ask your questions. We want to talk, we want to discuss, agree, disagree. It's all good for me. It's all about collaboration and the pursuit of a better way of doing things. Okay, let's get into the show. I am joined today by one of the most accomplished people and organizational development experts. As Senior Vice President of Learning and People Development of the $89 billion Reliance Industries, Puru has 15 years of cross-industry development. So, if you're ready to get into this, welcome to Rajagopalan Purushothaman, aka Puru. Ready, set, go.
80% of success in life, in every walk of life, professional and personal life, is driven by emotional intelligence, which has been proven by research. In my opinion, the best gift that you ever can give to your next generation is to teach them to manage emotions. Emotions are a very potent resource. If it is not used effectively, it can be destructive.
Puru, come on in. Hey, good day to you, sir. Good evening, I think, isn't it? How are you?
I'm doing well, Andrew. Thank you very much for having me in the show. It's always a pleasure.
Shouldn't the curtain be raised? You got a nice curtain in there as a backdrop. Good job. Been looking forward to this. Today we are changing it up a little. We're going quickfire round to explore some of the biggest companies in the world and what actually happened to them. Then we are jumping into the main discussion around EQ plus IQ equals success. What is EQ? What's the problem with EQ? And what do we have to do about it? And then we have a whole bunch of questions already in and hopefully several more coming in during the course of the show. So let's get started. You're up? You ready?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, so first up, we're going quick fire. We are looking at some of the most famous organizations. Why was their demise? The problem, I guess, in business is not really disruption due to technology or changing customer preferences and needs, but it's been the kind of inability to actually see it, accept it, and change. So let's prime the clock. Are you ready to go? We're going to give you 3 minutes to get through 4 organizations. We're waiting for that clock to get started. We're on a 5 countdown. Any second now, we're going 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Puru, Blockbuster. Remember them?
Absolutely. A big name in the olden times. So they probably failed to innovate, Andrew. They were had a very large network of stores. They probably were earning their margins out of penalizing customers for late return of DVD, and that might not be a very smart business model. Reed Hastings actually offered a collaboration with them from Netflix, and they flatly refused. And there was an acquisition offer of Netflix on their doorstep, which they didn't find it appealing. And I think the customers are waiting for a better option. And you know the rest of the story. It's no longer a blockbuster.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, on to one of my old favorites. I remember him well, BlackBerry.
BlackBerry, yes, it is. I think they completely ignored the introduction of touchscreen, and they were stuck to the keyboard right in their mind. They probably expected the customers to change rather than they changing, though the technology was evolving and they could have figured that out very much. In fact, Apple swept away the market right under their feet. I think it was too late for them to recover. So that, I think, was the story of BlackBerry.
Exactly. Apple took it. On to the good old days of Kodak.
Kodak is such a popular name with about a significant market share. I think I want to recall one interesting anecdote. One of the engineers in Kodak came up with the first digital camera to them and offered that as a product. So the management said, okay, photography without films, it's a cute idea, but don't share that with anyone else. So that was the response. And you know what the price that they paid for it. So I think sometimes we get clouded as individuals and organizations. We get clouded by our strength, and we are not able to see the world outside pretty well. So sometimes success clouds us so badly. I think they failed to recognize the digital photography, the tsunami of digital photography, and they were hesitant to change the business model. They expected the customers to still walk into their outlets to print their photographs. It never happened. They were waiting for eternity.
Yep.
And I think they didn't respond quickly. They didn't impress quickly to change this.
Okay, on to the last one. Indie time. Remember this one well as well. Tower Records.
Tower Records was a pilgrimage destination for music lovers. A lot of celebrities used to spend time there because of the wonderful ambience. But the challenge was they failed to recognize the online music coming their way, and they failed to respond quickly. So it's inability to see the outside world, the customer preferences, changes which is happening around you, the failure to observe and understand and change according, as you rightly said.
Yeah, got it. You're in the clock. Nice job. Well done. So thanks for that. We have one question that doesn't necessarily, it's a comment that kind of doesn't necessarily agree with you. Apple, the iPhone, was beautiful and brought entertainment. BlackBerry replied with the Storm. I remember that was good. It looked really good, but it didn't work. They tried, they failed, and they were demoralized. They couldn't pick up their people to really fight on. That's what they think. What do you think?
So let me respond emotionally, intelligently to this question. The fact is, it probably later turned out to be a storm in the teacup. So the issue was that they were aware of the touchscreen coming in, but they stuck on to the keypad for much longer than they ought to do, and that was their peril. So sometimes they miss the bus, and once someone takes a lead in the market, it's difficult to catch up later. So I think it's being proactively understanding customer preferences and needs. That's what the problem was.
Got it. One of the main offices just around the corner from me, they are doing pretty well. They're coming back. One here from Alkesh, innovative at the right time, but then stopped, thinking they had the answer forever. Laugh out loud. Thank you, Alkesh. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but they are coming back. Just saw them do a deal with Canoe, who we know very well, electric vehicle company. Slightly different business model, though. So interesting times ahead for them. What do you think? I guess in summary, from my perspective, it has been that inability to see what is going on, accept it, change the vision, change the people, and come back fighting. So,
yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
No, go ahead. You were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I want to use a key word called extrospection here. Extrospection, the ability to see the outside world, see the motives, feelings, understand others' opinion and thoughts. That comes from extrospection. And that's an important component of emotional intelligence. So it's not confined to individuals. After all, organizations are nothing but a group of individuals. So if you lack introspection, and many a times, Andrew, our strengths tend to become our weakness as well if we lack introspection and extrospection. So we just live in our own world. Jeff Bezos once interestingly said that companies who do not embrace failure never succeed, for that matter. They need to learn from the problems and then move on. There's going to be a lot of areas where you would fail, but you need to pick up and move on. And that's an interesting thought process, in my opinion.
Yeah, you bet. Let's move on. So step back for a few minutes, if you would. What exactly is EQ, and why is it so critical to our business cultures?
And even organizations sometimes lack empathy. It's not confined to individuals. As I mentioned, as a group of individuals who run companies. Organization decisions are ultimately made by human beings who need empathy. I would like to narrate a story of a CEO, for that matter, whom I know very well. I worked with him. He was a very intelligent man in the conventional sense, very high in IQ, very good in reasoning and analytical skills. The challenge was that he was inconsiderate to others' opinion, to his own peers and team members. I was personally involved in coaching him, and there was some intervention design. But if people don't resolve to change, there's nothing is going to help them. So ultimately, you have to unfortunately step down. And there's a lot of stories of this kind that people with very high IQ are not very good in understanding people. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, I get that. But honestly, most powerful entrepreneurs build their businesses by doing things their way, going with their guts, ignoring the naysayers. It's that kind of relentless approach. Why would they actually listen to others?
It's a very popular argument that whether it's Steve Jobs or any popular people, they said they had the thoughts in their mind and they used to drive it. But in the long process, it's a two-way process. It just cannot be one-way traffic. You can share your thoughts and vision with your team members, but you should be open to listen from the employees, your team members, and customers. Yeah. So it cannot be a one-way traffic in my opinion. It's a give and take. The law of nature operates in give and take. There's not an exception, Andrew.
Agreed. You know, to me, it's part of building at scale, because if you want to go from one person to a team of 6, to managers, to senior managers, to a C-suite, you either give responsibility, lock, stock, and barrel to your people, or you stay small. You stay as a one-man band. If you want perfection and you want everybody to be absolutely perfect, just do it yourself. Anyways.
Very true. Let me just add on a point here that our education system in most parts of the world are not conducive to teach emotional intelligence at very young age. We are
Don't get me started on the education system.
So there's a lot of changes happening in India as well, but I think it's still a far way ahead. You know, we are so lopsided towards IQ and lesser focus on emotional intelligence. We need to teach children to manage emotions at very early age. I just want to recall about a lady, Patricia Moore. I think that was one of the well-known American industrial designers. She propagated the idea of empathy marketing. So she was a pathbreaker in this.
Yeah,
isn't it?
You introduced me to Patty Moore, as she seems to be known. I'd never heard of her before, just being ignorant. Forgive me for that. But I read the story. She went to Architectural Industrial Design College. There were 350 people there. She was the only female, and she was the one in the room saying, what about these kind of people? What about this kind of situation? She was always looking for that kind of niche or unconsidered individual or collection of individuals. You know, I read on, and forgive me, so she was in her late 20s, and she dressed up and she put a kind of a contraption that gave her curvature of the spine. She put these glasses on that blurred her vision, earplugs in that reduced her hearing, so she could live in the shoes and total understanding of what it was like to be an older person, and what they would go through. And so it allowed her to reinvent the wheelchair. It allowed her to reinvent kind of tops, and they still exist today. An amazing, amazing lady, I got to say.
Yeah, I think we need to learn from her. It need not be only for product design. It applies to many businesses and all walks of businesses where you're dealing with customer. If you don't, the best expression is called as empathy marketing, ability to understand the real needs and the feelings of customers. That comes from cumulative emotional intelligence of people around in the organization, in my opinion.
Yep.
No wonder the World Economic Forum has identified emotional intelligence as one of the futuristic competencies. I think they got it absolutely right.
Interesting. Yeah, they come up with some good stuff. Good. So what are the problems that you are seeing in large organizations?
Larger the organization, more the challenge in demonstrating empathy for the sheer size sometimes prevents it from doing so. But let me share an example, a recent example in the organization in Reliance where we're working with the petrol retail business. Just before the COVID times, we had to train our people on, prepare our people on COVID for the COVID situation. So we did all the rational part very well. We sent them the mask, the sanitizer, and other infrastructure and the formal communication. But there was a lingering fear of thin attendance because of the fear factor.
Oh, so, come on. Yeah. Okay. Well, without getting too controversial, because people will tell me off for it, isn't it common sense and selfless to not infect others?
Sometimes you cannot justify emotions, Andrew. We need to deal with them. There were some apprehensions in people initially when COVID caught on. There was a lot of uncertainty in people's mind. Families were concerned about sending the children to the workplaces. So we need to deal with that. We can't. Might not be a rational part, but there was a fear. So what we did is we contacted all the 14,000 people digitally. And the first few conversations our training team had with them was not on anything related to COVID, to just find out whether they are safe enough, are they comfortable, are the family is comfortable. That made a tremendous impact. That's empathetic communication for that matter, because we all deal with rational communication all throughout the day. They knew that there's someone there worried about them, they're concerned about them. That is empathetic communication. And these are small gestures will make a big difference.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very much lining up with what they're going through rather than imposing. I understand. For me, it kind of comes down to rapport. In other words, you, as the saying is, you don't jump on a moving train by standing still because it's just going to sweep you away. You need to be traveling at the same speed to step across, aka be on the same wavelength and not just react. So yeah, you're quite right. I understand where you're coming from.
Right. Just to conclude the last point, there were only 8 infections out of 14,000 people because they were probably passionately involved in learning what they need to be safe about. I want to recall Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn. He made a very interesting expression called non-reactive communication. So what he said is, if there is a difficult situation, then you have a conflict with someone, there's an angry moment with someone. So no point in being reactive. It leads nowhere. Just take a pause. Try to understand what the other person is saying. What could be the reasons why he's saying so? What are the motives? What are the feelings? So you might be able to sort out things better because it heads nowhere if both of them reactive all the time.
Yeah, understand. Good point. Okay. So the last week, we've been talking of solutions in managing change in individuals and organizations. We've been discussing kind of the turnarounds. The people who are now, they had a hit and they've come back. People like, groups like Walmart, New York Times. You were discussing one of your, I believe, old customers or a group that you work with or for, one of the domestic conglomerates out of India. I guess what we concluded was that these were groups that saw it as it is. They confronted positively the war that was in front of them. What have you seen from the ones we were talking about? So you got Walmart, New York Times, Bajaj. Tell me how you see that.
They are very good examples to learn from, Andrew. They are examples. They did face change and they fought against all odds. They understood the environment, they understood the customers very well and made changes and are probably able to, they are well in the path of success. I might not claim them to be absolutely successful, but I think they are in the right track. We talked about Walmart as well. So they have a very good chance of success. I believe it's more commendable for an old organization who've been operating for decades to make a change and transition in the new age businesses than a startup doing the change. They had to make a cultural change. The organization change is much more challenging. So I would say they are knight in the shining armor in the fast changing business world. These case studies that we were talking about right now.
Got it. Got it. Okay, let's just talk specifically about Walmart. With the pending domination of Amazon, what did they do? What did they get right?
I think the Harvard Business Review sums it up very well. It says that Walmart is increasingly becoming a digital winner. They also summarize the point that they are pretty fast going in their e-commerce business. And what's so good about such a large organization is that they are enhancing the digital experience periodically. They're doing it better and better every day. So there's an intent for changing.
Got it. Okay. So real quick one then. New York Times, not so long ago, I remember I was living in a condo and they used to lay out the newspapers in the corridor. And I'd go out in the morning and they'd see them, I'd step over them, and they'd come back in the evening. And guess what? They were still there. People weren't reading them. So with the possible eradication of the newspaper, what is going on with New York Times? They seem to be really prospering.
I think they were faced with a tough situation. Somewhere between 2010 and 2015, the advertising revenue fell from $60 billion to $20 billion. That's a huge drop.
Yeah.
I think they successfully managed an online subscription and they put in some good online content and they were able to catch up with the customer base even now. The subscription base is good and I think they were doing pretty well. They managed the transition well as well.
Or was it the Trump effect?
Andrew, it's election time. So first of all, let me explain to you that I do wear masks.
He brought attention to them. Let's be honest. He really did.
The second is, for this particular purpose, being election time, I shift the mask towards my mouth and I would like to be quiet on that.
Oh, okay. No, he's wearing mask. Let's be truthful. Anyways, you were talking of Bajaj Automotive out of India, big group, never to be underestimated with I'm not sure the last count, 1.5 billion people. So what did you see from Bajaj?
It's very interesting. I personally was involved in this organization about 2 decades back when they're going through this transition. It's a pretty old company, 1945 when they were born. And they were literally a monopoly making scooters, and there was no other option but to buy from them. You had to wait for several years to buy a scooter from them with advanced money. Suddenly they faced with international competition with international brands. They made a very successful transition. They recognized the changing trend from a movement from scooters to motorcycles, which was not their core competence, but they built their whole organization towards it. Now they're holding 16% of the market share and targeting for 25% in the near future. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, that's really big. Okay, good. So that's some of the turnaround stuff. Let's get practical. What does it take to change organizations, to change people, and how do we bring in the empathy culture?
It's a combination of 2 things. One is introspection and extrospection. So let me decode this word, not to use some heavy word. The fact that introspection is the ability to understand your own self, your emotions, your feeling, your strengths, your weaknesses within an organization and within individuals. And extrospection is exactly doing the same with the outside world, ability to observe other people's feelings, sentiments, motives, needs. When your antenna is open towards inwards and outwards, you tend to understand and make right decisions comparatively better, for sure. That's what is important in managing. So all the other examples that we talked about failures, so the failure of introspection or extrospection in the organizational level and individual levels.
Interesting. Okay. I want to get practical. Let's get away from introspection, extrospection, which I know you understand passionately. Let's get down in the trenches. How do we actually make it happen?
True, Andrew. I think I'm writing a book. Is going to be published very soon. It's at the editor's desk. It's called as Emotional Intelligence: Reaching Escape Velocity in Digital Era. You'll find much more content on that, but just let me give a snapshot of that. I want to explain driving emotional intelligence. And driving emotional intelligence is nothing but implementing emotional intelligence with the analogy of driving a car. So when you're driving a car, at times you need to brake. So here, if you're finding a situation not in your favor, you apply brake, take a pause. As simple as that. So when you take a pause, a lot of wisdom dawns upon you that sometimes we don't give that space for giving that pause. After giving this pause, look at the mirrors, look at the rear mirrors, look at the side mirrors when you drive. That's for your own safety. But here, look around people's situations around. Look at yourself, look at the people around, look at the situation. And that will give you better wisdom to make choices. Then comes changing the gears. So when you when you understood the situation well, you need to act. And sometimes you need to ignore. Sometimes you need to postpone. That choices is when you make changing the gears. And those people who give an excuse that they're driving an automatic car, so I would suggest they use the pedal.
Or an electric vehicle, please.
Electric vehicle, please. No excuses. Use an accelerator pedal instead of the gear if you don't relate to that.
Okay.
The next would be follow the rules, just like we need to follow the traffic rules and you have consequences. You follow the traffic rules of empathetic communication, especially in tough situations when you are challenged, when situations not in your favor, yet you maintain empathetic communication, differentiates the ordinary from the extraordinary. And last but not least, if you do all these things right, you're going to power steer through the traffic and have a safe journey. So that's what I call as driving emotional intelligence. You'll find a lot of other stuff in the book with much more details.
Love it. Love it. Love the automotive analogy. It's one that I would use. I've got to say, it's so appropriate in many, many ways. I've met many managers who do not drive things forward. They frequently spend most of their time looking in the rearview mirror about how they've always done things, and just reapply it once all over again. Of course, when you're looking forward, things are changing all the time, and you need to adjust and not live in the past and start looking towards the future. Bring through the good points. Great. Thank you for that. So before we jump into Q&As, everyone, please, Q&As, ask questions. We've got Puru here, one of the world experts on EQ plus IQ equals success. I want to come to you, Puru. We have got and yourself here. You're all about EQ. You're all about empathy as a platform and method for success. You've a chance to ask a few thousand people something, anything, whatever you want to ask. Hopefully not what you're going to have for dinner, but hopefully something good. Anything you want to ask.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. Instead of asking, I would probably give an opportunity for people to introspect. I just put up, wonderful. The image is already there. Thank you very much for this. Okay. So please, the question is, who would you choose as a leader? And you got traits on option A, listed under option A. Your traits listed under option B. So kindly read through these traits and introspect and choose which is the person whom you like to choose as your leader, number one.
Yep.
To then ask a question, why? And also find out which of these traits are linked more to emotional intelligence and which are more linked to IQ. And why did you make the choice? So it's a more opportunity for introspection rather than me giving a recommendation.
Awesome. Awesome. So please pick option A or pick option B. Very good. Look forward to that feedback during and after the show. I'd love to hear what you learned from that. Good. So let's move into Q&As. We certainly had a few coming in before the show. I'm not sure what we got coming in during the show. Let's go to Q&A. Let's see what first question is from Sequoia Dutton. What's been your hardest change or retraining experience in enterprise, and why?
Right. This was the initiative was called as Work Smart, Andrew. It happened about 6 years back. We realized that the processes that we have been prescribing to our store operations in Reliance Retail, when I was heading Reliance Retail Academy, was not working well. So instead of prescribing processes sitting at the comfort of our offices, we decided for 2 weeks, the senior managers and cross-functional team went and took up work at the store, and we took up different responsibility and literally worked in the store. When we worked, we found out, I'm not exaggerating, it's more than 700 observations that we found. Either the process was inappropriate, or the process didn't exist, or something that we couldn't, the frontline person would not be able to execute it with lack of infrastructure. So we came back and redrafted all our processes. We call it as Work Smart, changed all the content again, and retrained 12,000 people in a matter of 3 months. And I would call it as empathy to the highest order, because when you live the life of a frontline associates, you better empathize better. You understand where the shoe bites.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Andrew, we got the Asian Human Capital Award from Singapore for the best case study of learning and development for the decade for this initiative called Work Smart. So that was my most precious experience in change management.
Great. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Puru. Next question. We got another question come in. Okay, Barrett Lonius, what are the skills you've seen in great leaders?
Emotional intelligence, without any doubt, because that's what we've been talking about all this while. But the four things which I'm going to say probably stems from emotional intelligence as well. Ability to listen and understand. And we talked about it quite often in this session. Be non-reactive. We already discussed that once.
Yeah.
Able to stand by their word and hold on to their values in difficult situations. Interestingly, let me tell you, and I've dealt that in my book as well, if people lack self-regulation as a competence of emotional intelligence, they will breach their values much more often. So that's important to hold on to the values, whether it's empathy, which we already talked about, and the other components of emotional intelligence in terms of self-motivation and self-regulation, self-awareness, all are important, but these are transactional evidences that I see from very good leaders.
Excellent. Very good. Okay. Any more questions we got? One from Prathana Liano. How much of a business success depends on the management's balance of EQ and IQ? Thank you.
IQ is anyway provided, feeded with us right from engage. I am not at all concerned about IQ because you cannot get into a university without IQ. You cannot get into an organization without IQ. So my concern is not IQ. Not that it is not important. So in fact, Daniel Goleman put the ratio of 80-20. 20 is IQ and 80% EQ. And the other dimension is as and when you grow up in the organization from an individual contributor to a senior level, the importance of EQ goes up more and more. And not that you need dumb people at the top. The necessity for using IQ probably it's lesser and more of EQ. It's people management. It's dealing with difficult situations and people management. So both are important. IQ is a passport. EQ gives you the escape velocity.
Nice. Very good. Okay. Next question. We got any more? Prathana, thank you again. Also, we hear about EQ in corporations. How about good old politics? Yeah.
Yeah. I think politics deserves it the most, in my opinion. If the political leadership were empathetic, I think you wouldn't have poverty in this world anymore. So it's a very badly needed skill. I know some politicians who are genuinely empathetic and they do a very good job, but they are more of exception. But the world is more driven by economic sense and rather than not by social service in the true sense how politics started in the initial part of politics. But empathy is extremely important for political field. I
understand. Yeah, I kind of read that question as a slightly on the negative side. You know, the amount of politics that go on and games that people play. It's I guess really the responsibility of leadership to squash that as soon as they possibly can through transparency and, as you say, empathy and getting everyone to think the same way and stop competing, so to speak. So interesting. Right. Any more questions coming in? One from Venugopal. Thank you. What is upskilling and reskilling from EQ plus IQ perspective? Right.
So let me focus on EQ because IQ is laid, a good foundation is laid in your education system in many parts of the world. Good news is that we can start training yourself on emotional intelligence at any age of your life. Unlike researchers indicate that IQ stagnates by the time you're age about 18 to 20 years. It doesn't develop so strongly subsequently. There are incremental changes. But EQ can be developed at any age and it can be gained, but I would not request you to wait until the age of 80 to do that. There are exercises which I have prescribed in the book, which would help you develop your EQ. There are two components, building EQ and driving EQ. Building EQ is a very deep subject. It comes out of a lot of practice and it is achievable. It's not complicated, I can tell you.
Interesting. It's kind of learning a new language. It's really embedding it, isn't it? Making it a habit, I guess. Very good. Any more questions? Do we have anything else? One from Aurelian Morel. What emotions are important for performance and success?
So emotions are a very broad word. If you break down emotional intelligence, there are 5 components. So each one of them are important for that. You cannot segregate one. It begins with self-awareness, which we talked about, introspection, self-regulation, able to manage your emotions in the difficult situation. If you do these 2 well, you're good in self-motivation. That means you can inspire yourself, you can drive towards, you're result-oriented. If you manage all the 3 selves, then you are higher chance of being empathetic, and also you're good in social skills. So all the 5 components are equally responsible for your success. It's important. It's very difficult to pick up one sub-component of emotional intelligence and say that's what makes you successful.
Yeah.
And they are linear in nature. They lead in one into another.
Great. Very good. Very good. Any more questions? One from Viswanathan. Why colleges won't give much importance to emotional intelligence?
It's a supply and demand issue. I think if all the parents stand at the gates of the colleges and insist that the child should be taught, they probably would respond. I think the education system was constructed for a different purpose. The formal education system was constructed early in the 19th century and 18th century to create
before
workers.
The internet. Yeah.
Before the internet, by the way, and also to create workforce for manufacturing and industrial revolution. But we have moved away to a different revolution, but our education system is still lagging behind.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
One reason why it's not been catching up. So I would recommend you to read a book called Startup Nation by Paul Singer. He predicts that the biggest disruption would be in education. And he believes a lot of these things, including emotional intelligence, will come into play very shortly.
Very good. Nice tip. Nice tip. Very good. Any more questions? We are flowing. Hassani Damos, is it possible to manage people positively without being a designed manager? Interesting.
I'm not able to understand what it means by a designed manager. But
yeah, I guess templated manager. Maybe that might be what Hassani's meaning. Hassani, please jump in with another comment if we're not understanding you. But as a templated manager.
Okay, if it is a templated manager, I think you need flexibility. If you are templated, you are too much on the rational side. You only want to see the plus and minuses and be very rational.
Everyone's different.
You need to be flexible in managing people. They are one of the important different strokes for different folks. Some people need an emotional response. Some people might need rational response. Some need detailed coaching. So you need to be flexible. A templated manager will find it difficult to handle diverse kind of personalities and people.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Wow. Okay. Maybe one more. Have we got one more question that we want to look at? Let's see if we have. Okay, from Udit Mittal, how to deal with dominant personalities if one always uses EI. Very good.
Absolutely. EI does not mean to be submissive. That's a misunderstanding. That's a misconception that if you're emotionally intelligent, that means you're submissive. Emotionally intelligent people are pretty assertive, but they're not aggressive. So aggressiveness with the dominant personality will show you the door. It's not going to help you. Neither do it with your spouse, by the way. Don't try it there. So the fact is that if you're emotionally intelligent, you don't go into a cocoon and be submissive. Neither you go and catch hold with the neck of the person. That balancing act of acting assertively comes from emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely great. Very good. Very good. Please, everyone, if we haven't got to all of your questions, please keep them coming, because what we're going to do after this show, we're going to take all of those questions, all of those comments. I'm going to send them to you, Puru.
Sure.
And please jump in, answer, help these people with some of these great questions that are coming in. Thank you, everybody, once again. Puru, thank you so much. That book of yours, remember to drop the link in the comments if you would after the show so people can get that, and we'll share that around as we post out the recording. Good luck with the many thousands of people in helping them get where they want to be, and in so doing, making Reliance one of the best companies that it certainly can be. Thank you once again.
Pleasure was mine, Andrew. It was always love to interact with you.
That's excellent. Thank you. Okay, everyone, let us talk next week. Next week, we are hitting episode 10, and we're meeting with a 20-plus year PLM product lifecycle manager. Most recently, he's been installing 3D Experience in one of the leading electric vehicle companies in the United States. We're talking challenges, organizing the bill of materials, best practices, and working with one of the most progressive companies around today. Have a great few days ahead. Next week, we will see you back at 9 a.m., but on Friday, that's 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, 1800 in Europe, 2130 in India. Okay, you get the message. You got it. I'll stop there. See you next week. Have a great few days ahead. Have a good one. Thanks again.